Welcome back to the podcast. Today, I have Jack Kindred, and we're going to be discussing how we can find our hero's journey. Welcome to the Balance Code Podcast, a place for high achievers to step outside the hamster wheel of day to day life and start learning tools for more balance. I'm your host, Katie Russler, and I will be guiding you on this journey of discovering your balance code. Now, you might be thinking, this is not Greek mythology. What are you talking about? But we'll be diving into what that really means as high achievers for us to better understand that our life's journey has a hero part to it. So, Jack, thank you so much for being here, being a part of this podcast. Do you mind introducing yourself, sharing a bit about what you do, where you are, and who you serve?
Yeah, I'm very grateful to be here. Thank you for having me on. Again, my name is Jack Kindred, and I am a life coach in the United States, specifically Seattle, Washington. And my story is curious. I used to be a lawyer and did that for many years until the arrival of my daughters, and which was 20 years ago. My second daughter had special needs, which kind of dictated that I stay home with her, and that really gave me an interesting existence, going from a boardroom to all the rooms attached to parenting. But that arc lasted about 17 years. And so about 3 years ago, kind of came out the other side and what's next. And with all my life experience, all the doors I got to peek behind, all the curtains I got to peek behind as a lawyer, plus the education I got diving into parenthood, those kind of provided me with the ability to understand life, and it served me well in my coaching endeavors. So that's what I'm doing today.
That's excellent. Can we just stop and say how humbling an experience it is to be, like you said, in the boardrooms, and then all of a sudden you're wiping up poop and you're doing things and you're carrying your child and doing all it's very humbling, and it reminds you that the identity we wrap up in our career doesn't really matter.
Well, and that was the profound message that was thrust upon me, right? I didn't go looking for it, but there it was. And it's one of those things you mentioned, the hero's journey. This is where I found it because what is happening? What can I do with this? And am I going to go on that journey at all? That's where the question is asked. And then the decision is, yes, I'm going to go on that journey. And if you're familiar with the story, what is the dragon then? And how do I go about slaying it? And then what am I going to bring back to the community as on the back end of my journey? So yes, the humbling nature of things was difficult, but it's the greatest gift I've ever been given.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so you've just sort of shed light on that story and what the hero's journey looks like. I think often in life, it's much easier for us to fall into the victim of life rather than the hero in our lives. Can we start with that shift first of the belief systems we may have, maybe from our childhood or what we saw modeled in our parents around, I'm a victim to life versus I am the hero in my own journey.
Yeah, that's the big shift. And I talk to my clients about that one a lot. I generally don't go directly to hero necessary, but victim to owner. That's the distinction I make, right? And it's so significant. And I don't know if it's this day and age, but it certainly feels like it. That temptation to be a victim with all of the attendant stress, all of the information coming at you, all of the examples of victimhood that are coming at you in this world of information overload. But it's a slippery slope, and it's one of the worst places you can be. But if you can make that shift to owner, so instead of I can't believe this is happening to me, to this is happening to me, bring it on. What can I learn from this? How can I be better? How can I be the best version of myself in light of what is happening to me? And that's the shift.
Yeah,
And
and
that's certainly, sorry to interrupt you there. And that's certainly what you want on your various heroic journeys, right? Because it's not just one, it's a good life, it's a series of heroic journeys.
so it sounds like the shift to becoming the owner is about how we describe what's happening to us and the empowerment we feel in our resilience, right? And our strength and our personal ability to handle anything that comes. So, how do you help your clients see that the resilience is already kind of built in?
So That's where it starts, is explaining that to them, that and because I give them skills to find that thing that already resides in them. And I guess that's the point. That's what I do, is I pull out what is already there. It's the rare case that I'm actually trying to instill that. And so part of it is being still and getting out of your own way to hear that voice and find that power. But it's in all of us. And so what we're talking about here is that reactive discipline. And if you're familiar with Viktor Frankl, who talked about stepping into the gap, right? That's what it is stepping into the gap between stimulus and response. That's the first step. That's the main tool. So whatever is happening to you, instead of simply reacting to it, is realizing, no, I have this power to stop, step into that gap, and formulate the best response for that situation. Understanding and having that attitude that you actually are happy, not happy necessarily, but in a proper frame of mind to know that the obstacle is the way, that this thing that is happening to you can be very educational and helpful, right? And so you actually, again, it's funny the language behind it, to invite the struggle. I think everybody understands what that means.
Yep.
It's again that shift in your mindset.
And I think, Jack, if we think about the wisest people in our lives, or the people that we look up to, they tend to be very calm in their answers and responses and methodic and even take a pause. So if we see these people in our lives already modeling this for us and we see them as like, wow, look at them. It's a good reminder that really stepping into that gap, that space between the triggering event and how you respond can be the most promising, is what you're saying. It's the most promising to change the habit, to shift the behaviors, and to shift the thought process. Now, you mentioned a dragon. So let's talk about these dragons that we face in
Yes.
our lives and how they show themselves.
They can be sneaky, they can be profound, they can be scary, they can be large, and they can be small. And that's why when I said earlier, a series of heroic journeys, that's what it is. But we all generally have that one big one that stands in our way. And that's part of what the journey is. It's going after some of those bigger ones that generally derive from our childhood or a trauma or something like that. I heard what somebody say the other day, being on the journey is not sidestepping lizards, right? It's facing the dragon. And so once it's identified and once you start on that journey, then you battle the dragon. And here's what really got my attention when I started to study this and apply it to my own life. I was like, okay, you fight the dragon and you kill it, and then off you go. And then Joseph Campbell says, no, it's so much more than that. You slay the dragon and you then assume its power. And that just set me back. And I thought about it, and then now I'm overtly going on my own heroic journey with being mindful of it, and then slaying a particular dragon, and then realizing the truth behind assuming that power. It's quite extraordinary. And then that's one of the things that, if you're familiar with the journey, you slay the dragon, you learn, you assume its power, and then you bring that back home or back to the community. Campbell called it bringing back the boon. I had never heard the word boon before, but that's what the treasure, right?
Treasure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what we mean by dragons are things like imposter syndrome, fear of failure, right? What will other people think of me? These dragons that show up in our lives on repeat, that are those false beliefs or fears, or maybe it's unhealthy relationships, codependency, whatever it might be. These are the dragons he's describing. Those things that you keep facing that are challenges. And you're like, the victim goes, why does this keep happening to me? But the owner goes, okay, this keeps happening. So let's do something about it. Right, Jack?
Right, right. There's a much better answer to the question you asked earlier.
Oh, no.
I love that. No, I was like, okay, that's what you meant. Yes, those are the dragons. And it's funny that you mentioned imposter syndrome, because that really keeps coming up in my practice. And such a great example. It's like, here is the dragon, and I need to slay it, and I need to go on that journey. And what does that look like? And it's, idiosyncratic. It's unique to each of us. But once you identify it and go after it and slay it, there's such power in it.
One of the biggest gifts that I've been given in my own life, not only just working with clients, but also getting to meet people who kind of became mentors and going and speaking places and, meeting best-selling authors was to hear their journeys, to hear that even in the moments of speaking on stage, they were just as nervous as I was. And they'd been speaking on, TED Talk type stuff. Like they've been doing big stages. And I was like, this is just the human experience. This is just normal when you feel a bit like a novice or a new situation or a new group to speak in front of. That my dragons might feel unique to me, but their dragons have a similar shade as well, right? Similar color, similar style. And we all have to face them. That helped me heal so much in the sense of, okay. And honestly, it will not matter what stage I have to speak on. It will not matter what new situation I'm gonna be in. I will feel a level of butterflies and anxiety and oh my God, I'm gonna throw up. And like, that's normal, right? Like that is the dragon of I feel like an imposter. Am I allowed to do this?
Mhm.
This is new that we all are on our journey. So I love that you talk about like we're all going on multiple journeys. It's not one has mastered a journey better than the other. It is you're on your journey, you soak up the gifts of learning from that dragon, and you might face another one that has a similar appearance. You might face another imposter syndrome moment, but that's that next dragon that has a lesson for you. So I love that you're bringing this in. Now, I know you like to bring in virtue work too. So let's go there. How do you bring in the work of our virtues and living our virtues on this hero's journey?
So ancient wisdom came up with these cardinal virtues, and those served everybody quite well. And then modern science rolls in, and with all the ability to scientifically explore these same things, to no one's surprise, they came up with the exact same virtues, right? It was more of a confirmation exercise. And so, what ancient wisdom and modern science have agreed on is to live the best life, to live a flourishing life is to put virtues into action. So I like to think of these virtues as the tools that you're taking on your journey with you. And so, what virtues are we talking about? Wisdom, right? To know the game that you're playing here in life, which is to be the best version of yourself in service to something greater than yourself. And then gratitude, which is important for everybody and one of the best things you can do to to raise your happiness level. Love, right, for yourself, for your family, for friends and beyond. Curiosity as a virtue, which was one that was a surprise for me, but that exploration and excavation that one does to figure out what's working,
Mm,
what's not, and what needs work, right? And then self mastery or discipline. It's one thing to do, right? And to study these things and to be a librarian, but knowing what to do and then doing it are two different things. So moving from theory to practice to mastery, and then zest, energy, right? Focusing on our fundamentals, which is eating, breathing, sleeping, moving, focusing, prospering. These things are fundamental to all the other virtues because if we're not maximizing that, then we're not at our best. And then courage, acting in the face of fear. And then lastly, hope. So these are all things that we're all familiar with, but to focus on them, to dig into them a little bit, and then to put them into action. I have found that to be, even personally, that's been the biggest source of my own growth. And it's really helpful for my client.
Dare I say it, dear listener, I feel like Jack just uncovered the code to balance in life. This podcast called The Balance Code, you literally just listed everything that I was like, yep, that creates balance in our life. Yep, that creates balance. Yep. When we live those virtues, balance and order happens. So thank you, Jack. The podcast is now done. We're done. No need for
There we go.
interviews. We've solved the balance code. No. But so
It's a
these are
wrap.
beautiful virtues, but how do you put that into practice on a regular basis? What are you teaching your
Oh,
clients?
so to put these on a compass, right? And so we've got the cardinal virtues at north, south, east, and west. So wisdom, self-mastery, love, and courage. Those are the primaries. But you can have this compass in front of you. I've done it so many times, I've got it locked into my brain, but there's something that goes along with that, and that is being present, right? So doing the work to learn of the power of presence. And there's meditation in any form. That's the other thing I'm teaching my clients. That meditation isn't necessarily, you don't need to be a monk and sit cross-legged and do everything right and inset. No, it's whatever works for you. The simplest of just breathing exercises are sitting still and clearing the mind. But it's being present to listen to that voice, which the Greeks called the daimon, right? And everybody has it. It just knows, but you need to be still to hear it. And then if you have these virtues in front of you, or being mindful of them, what is extraordinary is if you're still and you have the ears and the spirit to hear, and you just go around this compass every single day from inside of me or from other, whatever the source is, I hear what virtue is important for that day or that moment or which combination. Like I know when I'm not being courageous, right? I know if there's, and by courageous, I mean, there's a difficult phone call I need to make and I've been procrastinating, right? It could be that small because our infinite potential, right, is right on the other side of our comfort zone.
Mhm.
Not anything grand per se, but so it might be, hey, Jack, make the phone call, right? Let's go. Or self mastery will pop up and discipline. Have you been eating well? Have you really been working out? If you feel really bad right now, you haven't been working out. And then curiosity, the whole month for me has been curiosity keeps coming up. What's working? What's not? And what needs work in order to optimize your life, in order to be better? So be present and have them at the front of your mind, and you'll readily hear what you need to do.
I love that. Really checking in with yourself on a regular basis, not just even once a day, but maybe multiple times a day when you think of it. I think that's really important. I'm thinking about the listener who has been, hit down by waves of life, just one thing after another after another. Every dragon, right, is coming. And it just seems like a period or a season of life of a lot of challenges, and maybe they don't feel like the hero. They know they're fighting the dragons, but they don't feel like the hero. What hope can you give them on the journey they're on right now?
Picture yourself on the other side of that and feel what it feels like to be heroic. Think about what that identity is, what that person looks like, and feel like them, or at least think about feeling them. And it is really interesting how that identifying that identity and then acting like that person that you have come up with actually makes a big difference. It might sound trite and silly, and yet it's not. You pretend to be the thing and then you become that thing.
Like a full embodiment. So visualization, visualize what they look like, what are they doing, how are they feeling at the end of it, and then walking that, really embody
Yes.
that.
And the key in there too is the walking, the moving, the action. Don't stop taking action because it's the movement that is imperative. And you mentioned walking too. The other thing that's been interesting on my own journey and learning and really thoughtful, profound people, particularly in the past, have talked about walking, 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 walking. And I have implemented walking as a part of who I am and the thinking I'm doing. And it really is profound to walk and to think. So actually, the more I think about it, that's where I would start with that person you just asked about. Walk, walk walk and think about these virtues.
Yeah.
Just another tool to add in, but it's a powerful exercise despite its simplicity.
Have you ever done a walking meditation in a labyrinth? Have you had that experience?
I have not done it, but I know what you're talking about.
Oh my goodness. Please have that experience in your life because it is quite powerful. In my master's program, we were able to go to an institute that had a rock labyrinth on the ground. And then just imagine you've got this huge labyrinth in front of you and you can see the end. It's not like I'm with bushes, right? Like you're able to see where you're walking, but You go in with a question, a thought, a challenge, right? You go into walk around and walk around and walk around into the center, and then you kind of mentally release it. And then as you walk out, you open yourself up to the answer. And it's a really powerful experience. And I think sometimes we think we need that structure for a walking meditation like you're describing, but you
Mm.
just go for a walk anywhere. You don't have to have a profound space or, in the mountains or walking along a river, even just really walk in your neighborhood thinking, allowing the space to mull over the challenge, mull over the journey you're on, mull over the dragons. I love that you said walking because that really helps our brain and our body get way more connected. And most people forget that. Most people forget the integration of the two.
I love that you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's such power in it. And it facilitates for a lot of people that stillness, right? Because stillness is a big key in all of this. And we're all in this flurry of activity with all of this information coming at us. And we don't fully appreciate the impact that it has on us, on our psyche, and this low grade chronic anxiety that we're suffering if we're allowing ourselves to be subject to all this information. And then we were trying to find answers. And the answer is in the stillness because that voice is there to be heard if you can stop to hear it.
And your gift of sharing with people the tool of walking helps to quiet the monkey brain. I call it the monkey brain, hamster wheel, whatever
Yep.
you want to call it. It
Oh, yeah.
really
Monkey
actually
brain.
biologically does because of happy hormones, right? We got dopamine and we're going and we're like, woo, endorphins, yay. And then you can think clearly. So you just nailed it. Like we need that to create stillness. Sometimes you actually have to movement to create the stillness.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard an interesting description of a conversation the other day. Somebody said, you know, when you're talking with somebody and they're not listening to you, and you can see it and you can feel it. And what do you do then when you feel that, right? You stop talking, you stop communicating with any depth. And I'm thinking, where is this going? And then the person said, that's what's going on with your inner voice, your daimon or the universe, however you want to look at it, is it's ready to talk, but you're not paying attention. So it stops because you can't hear. And that really motivated me to appreciate that voice on the other side. I'm going to be present so it can feel free to talk. And again, from personal experience, it was powerful.
That's a beautiful analogy. Like that,
Right.
I'm working with couples. I'm like, oh my God, that's a perfect analogy. All know that feeling of you're not really listening to me, and that inner voice going, well, you're not really listening to me. So
Right.
yeah,
So what if the universe is feeling that same thing? Or
yeah,
again, however you want to define it.
yeah, right, absolutely. To each their own. Jack, this has been such a pleasurable conversation. I thank you for your wisdom and your willingness to walk us through kind of what this journey looks like. Do you have any last thoughts you want to leave us with before we figure out how to connect with you?
You know, a good thought on the hero's journey, there's a documentary called Finding Joe, and the Joe is Joseph Campbell, but it's on YouTube. If you guys have YouTube over there, I assume you
Hmm.
do, but it's free on YouTube, and it's a documentary with really some profound thinkers coming together to celebrate and describe and to teach on this. But I've never seen a better, more condensed version of what this is and how powerful it can be. So I would say go watch Finding Joe, and honestly, it'll have a significant impact on your life.
Awesome. Yes, I will try my best to find that, link it then in the show notes so people can go and watch it. Jack, if they want to connect with you, if they want to learn more from you, how do they do so?
They can reach me at Jack Kindred at williamsburgcounseling.com.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jack, for your time and sharing all your thoughts with us. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me on.
And dear listener, here's to finding our balance code. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Take a moment to leave a rating and a review on your favorite podcast platform. That helps other listeners just like you to find this podcast too. Want to connect and learn how we can work together? Check out the links in the show notes below. Discovering your balance code doesn't have to be a one-person journey. You can have a team, and I'd love to support you. So here's to finding our balance code.